the first major litmus test of Nigeria's ability to hold successful elections in the midst of a global pandemic is almost upon us. In a little over 5 weeks, eligible voters in Edo State are expected to troop out and cast their votes for a new governor. But how easy will this be against the backdrop of events in the past couple of weeks, during which democratic institutions have taken a hit, lives and limbs lost, and the prospect of even greater disruption of public peace in Edo State? How will the civil society prepare for all of this? We're now being joined for this discussion around these issues by Safiya Bichi Akuson, Head Knowledge Management and Learning Manager, Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth and Advancement Africa, also known as YAGA. Welcome to the program, Safiya, and thank you very much for joining us on the morning show. Well, quickly, our focus is Edo State.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've always said on this program...
Dr.
Yes, good morning. Good to have you here. Now, we've always said on this program that with the political crisis ongoing in Edo State, in the lead up to the September 19 gubernatorial election, we always ask the question, where are the people in the equation? Because it looks like the political gladiators are not thinking about the people and their interests and their aspirations. Now, is there a role for civil society to make sure that reason prevails in Edo State ahead of the elections, and then, of course, during the elections by way of monitoring and public enlightenment?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Abati. The question should always be, and like you rightly put it, where is the place of the people? Because most of these happenings, as you can see, get towards distracting the people. So in order to redirect attention back to the people, because the election is about the people, not about certain individuals in the society. Civil society has a lot to do in these elections, given the happenings, all the verbal attacks we've seen, the different quarters beating drums of wars. I think this time around, and for this election, one of the key things civil society can do is to commence or embark on what I'll describe as violence monitoring. And this is to help build a robust early warning system that will prevent and probably forestall or prevent the escalation of violence in the elections. Already there are predictions that the elections might turn out to be violent. So in order to prevent this from happening, we need to embark on that. Another thing is, like you rightly mentioned, sensitizing people. Now the election will be conducted in a different atmosphere because of the new sheriff in town. That's the COVID pandemic. So civil society has a role to play to engage the citizens and educate them. We know that there's a new voting procedure developed by the Electoral Commission. How much do people know about this procedure? Civil society has a role to play in sensitizing people so that people will not be disenfranchised on election day. We know that lack of information itself or inadequate voter education can also lead to violence. We've also seen studies in the past that have shown that ineffective voter education has also been an early warning signal or early warning sign of violence. So these are some of the things civil society institution or organization must do. In addition, we being from this part of the society, I mean the civil society group, we also need to engage INEC closely and also encourage INEC to collaborate with other agencies aside security agencies, but also the health agencies like NCDC, because we know that our politicians will also always explore will use any or every avenue in order to extort and explore people in this election. So these are some of the things we need to do and we need to look out for. But like you said, most importantly, we need to focus on the people. In the 2016 elections, we know that turnout is just about 33%. And what are we doing? This is less than half of the population of the registered voters. We need to do something. We need to encourage citizens to go out. And we need to also let them know that it's all about them, not about certain individuals that are beating drums of war.
And at Yaga Africa, Safiya, what is the reading of your organization's atmosphere of the Edo political arena at a time like this? And what are the likely levels of citizens' participation in this election? The drum of war you talk about, is it enough to deter the voters September 19? What are you reading from Edo State?
If nothing is done, voter turnout will go even lesser than what we see in 2016. This is because of two things. The violence indicators we're seeing at the moment, you cannot turn the pages of newspapers within a week without seeing any form of verbal attack or threats from any quarters in that state. Then the other is the fact that COVID is there. I know that for some time, consistently for about 4 weeks, we had for about a month, Edo has been ranking fourth on the states with the most prevalent cases of COVID. So these two, put side by side, can deter, prevent turnout in the elections if nothing is being done. And this is the right time for civil society to start engaging. I think if civil society would just start engaging, then it means that they are engaging late. But I'm also aware that civil society, including Yaga, have been engaging this process and have been engaging the activities of the state way back, yeah.
Right, Safiya, I just want to ask if you guys are on ground as we speak now in Edo State. Are you collating data? And how are you going to use that data? Because it's really very important. I mean, look at what happened at the House of Assembly in Edo State, and look at all the other things we've been hearing from side to side, because you need to let your other stakeholders know that there is going to be voter apathy, a very huge amount of voter apathy based on the fact that where we know that anywhere there is violence, there is voter apathy. So have you started that work, and are you on ground? Because I know you're always on ground, just like you were in Kogi, leading up to the Kogi elections. In Edo, are you on ground?
Yeah, at the moment we're on ground. We're in every local government, all the 18 local governments in Edo, and we've started conducting our violence monitoring, as I mentioned, to also share feedback with citizens and stakeholders that are likely or have the means to take actions to forestall some of these things. Apart from watching or looking at all other pre-election elements and the government interventions in the COVID, but I also mentioned that this is now time for us to also look at lessons learned from the just concluded elections in Nasarawa State. That's the by-election conducted on Saturday. What were the lessons learned, and how can we use these lessons from Nasarawa to correct or to inform our engagement in Edo State? That's for both civil society and INEC. In Nasarawa State, we've seen that the turnout was very low. We understand that it's a by-elections, but elections are elections. How can we encourage people? We've also seen that it was very difficult for people to also, for INEC officials to enforce the regulations around voting amidst COVID. What can we do moving forward to the elections? And the ugly menace of vote buying is still in existence. So I think we have a lot, like as you mentioned, Yaga is tracking all these indicators, and it's not just ready to share with citizens or stakeholders, but to also engage the relevant stakeholders to see how we can make this a better, this election much more better than what we're seeing at the moment. Yeah, turnout with all indicators at the moment might be low, but I think we still have a chance to improve turnout if all stakeholders, not just civil society organizations, INEC, and even political parties will do the right thing.
Well, Safiya, I would like us to dwell a little bit more on the election conducted on Saturday, August 8, in Nasarawa Central, the by-election, which you referred to. Now, INEC had said that they were going to conduct that by-election as a kind of test run for particularly the Edo gubernatorial election and also the Ondo State gubernatorial election. You've noticed certain omissions, and there were persons who were arguing that perhaps in the season of COVID-19, that INEC should just have not, conducted elections, that maybe we should wait. But INEC says that will amount to a violation of the Constitution. In your own assessment, based on what Yiaga observed in the Nasarawa Central by-election, do you really think that INEC is prepared, as it claims? And what are those amendments that you think INEC should focus upon as it prepares for Edo State, where INEC itself has admitted that there is a very serious threat of violence and unruliness?
Yeah, looking at the elections, but before I go to national elections, looking at the debate around conducting elections amidst COVID or not has been a very, there has been a robust engagement around that, and sometimes one is left with the choice of looking at what is happening in other climes. We know that elections has been conducted in other countries and African countries amidst COVID, and we've seen successful elections, we've seen unsuccessful elections. So it's left for us to learn from the good lessons we can borrow from other clients. But coming back to Nasarawa State, I think we have a lot of, to Nasarawa by-elections, we have a lot of things to learn from there. First of all, INEC came up with the voting guidelines, a guideline for voting that will be utilized in the next two governorship elections. And the elections in Nasarawa help us to run how effective and how effective was the guidelines. And when I talk about being the effectiveness, I'm not talking about whether it works or not, but looking at how INEC as an institution can enforce compliance to these guidelines. And to be honest, it was very, very difficult, for instance, to enforce the use of face masks at the polling unit. So now the question is, what should INEC do or put in place in order to ensure that this is being adhered to without disenfranchising people, and again, without violating their fundamental human rights? Because we also know that there's a tendency that political actors will use security agencies to take advantage of that particular gap and violate citizens' rights, and also prevent citizens from participating. Again, INEC has introduced a lot of things with this in these national elections. We've heard of I'm sure everyone in the studio is aware of the new guidelines not guidelines, but the new innovation on the portal for results collated from the polling unit. We also observed that, we monitored that closely, and we observed that this was not, the progress rate wasn't much, as most of the tablets deployed to the polling units did not work. And this is what I think INEC should look at moving to Edo if INEC wants to embark on that particular innovation, and if INEC wants this innovation to work, INEC needs to look at that as well. So these are some of the things, aside the fact that people will take advantage of the fact that this is a COVID era. There is citizens are experiencing economic hardship, and what are those things? These are some of the things we observe in the Nasarawa by-elections, and these are some of the things we need to also sensitize citizens and voters, and also ensure that issues around campaign finance, tracking of campaign finances are at the forefront of our engagements, not just civil society engagement, but also INEC's engagement. INEC that has the mandate to enforce the electoral guidelines, electoral laws at the moment.
Well, Safiya, in the past elections, we have seen that manifestos are secondary to personalities in the elections before, during the campaigns. And we get to see those issue-based campaigns when it comes to elections. What is playing out in Edo State? Is it still the same trend?
Yeah, to be honest, it's the same trend. Nothing new is coming from Edo. We're just seeing it happening rapidly. The election seems to be about personalities. So, and even for the parties, you hear people talk about the personalities or the individuals carrying that's the candidates for the parties, even much more than the parties. So the first thing you hear is this person versus this person before this party versus this party. Nobody is talking about what are those things they're putting on ground, what are those things what are the things we should look out for? I think it's only yesterday I heard one of the political party candidates was saying, I'm going to provide this or provide that. But in this entire election, what you hear is it's just about the personality. It's more about the personality. And it's surprising that at the moment, after 20 years of democracy, we're still conducting campaigns in that direction. I also understand that there are other developed clients that personality always has a role to play in every elections, but the election should not be just about the personality, but what are those issues on ground. And if you also agree with me, it's difficult to even point out the issues in Edo State, apart from the fact that there's personality clash, there are issues around godfatherism, there are issues around verbal or violence attack on different quarters.
I know you're on ground in Edo State, but I know you've been doing a lot of work, like you said. Can you just tell me, what are the top 3 issues most germane to people, based on the interactions you have been having across the state? I mean, what are the, hearing from the horse's mouth, now what are the issues most germane to people?
Yeah, so this is in two folds. The issues germane so far, which is not really amplified, is the fact that people want development, and there's a general outcry for hunger in the land. But to be honest, even the citizens are towing the path of personality. It's either we're for this person or this person. And it's very sad to see that, because even the citizens are not discussing issues, and that's why we're also encouraging civil society organization and our organization as well to carry out activities or engagement that will turn the table around, so that the citizens will be the ones to set the focus or the agenda for the elections. We know that in the past, or in most clients, political parties are the ones that set the focus for elections. But this time around, if our political parties are not doing that, we should not be following their path. We should reset the agenda so that they will come back to the issues. And like I mentioned, the truth is that even the citizens or voters are about the personalities as against the fact that, as against the issues that should be tabled on ground. And just to mention that the general outcry for economic hardship is there, and it's difficult to even prioritize the issues within that sector.
Well, Safiya, I mean, I know part of the process is, scenario building ahead of elections. Based on what you know and what Yaga has been able to observe, what's, in terms of scenario building, what's your worst case scenario or your best case scenario as to what we should expect on September 19 and after in Edo State?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just that at the moment there are a lot of things happening, and every day we come up with new scenarios that will likely happen. But looking at what is at the moment, looking at the events at the moment, it's either there's a likelihood that turnout will be low in the coming elections. Then there's also the fact that there might be violence in certain areas or locations of the state. So these are the two things that are likely going to happen based on what we're seeing at the moment. But again, like I mentioned, and I don't like being a carrier of bad news, these are things that can be overturned. And it's good that we use the current happenings to build up scenarios, and building scenarios helps us come up with preventive measures, usually.
But from what you hear, who stands the better chance of winning? I know you are not a politician.
To be honest, it's difficult to say that, most especially on an international TV like this. And to be honest, again, I personally don't know where the pendulum will be swinging on, because there are different opinions flying there and there. But I know that the elections will not be too different from what we've seen in the past. It's just for us to wait and see what the outcome will be.
Well, talking about opinions, the governor of Rivers State did make an allegation recently that from what he is seeing, there are plans to postpone this election, for the elections not to hold. You're on the ground, you are monitoring the situation. Do you think that this level of violence, the level of disruptions we are seeing in Edo State would warrant the electoral umpire to perhaps postpone this election? And secondly, you talked about results management by INEC and the innovations they've added in the by-election they just held in Nasarawa State. That's election viewing portal. What level of engagement do you have with the electoral body as regards that? Because we also know that election results collation has also been a challenge, and the transparency of it, which usually ends up in the courts. So what can INEC do differently with the Edo State election?
Okay, going back to your earlier question on the possibility of postponing the elections. At the moment, we've not seen any. INEC, in their last public statement around postponement of elections, said they are not going to postpone any elections. But again, there's nothing that is impossible, and we know that INEC is not the only institution that has the power to recommend for postponement of elections. But let's also understand that there's a guidelines to doing that. Nobody just wake up to postpone elections because the person feels like. So I can't really say whether there's a possibility. There's nothing that is impossible, and that's why we all must plan. And I also don't want to be carried away by what politicians are saying from the different angles, because we know that there are parties in these elections, and whatever they say might be from their own perspective. But coming back to result transparency, the truth is that that's the weakest link in our election day administration. And if you look at all the litigations from the 2019 elections, you see that it's either around candidate selection or transmission of results. So when INEC came up with this development, we were excited to see that. It was a welcome development. And we also, as an institution, went ahead to also look at how effective or functional this system is. Coming from Nasarawa by-elections, it shows that yeah, even though INEC said they're going to test run it in their elections, but we've seen a lot of gaps, and at the moment we're going to be engaging INEC on the gaps we've observed so far, so that they can bridge this gap in Edo elections and probably perfect it in Ondo elections. But I know that in Edo elections, we're going to see more of, we're going to do critical analysis of that particular innovation to see how effective it is. But I believe that if this innovation works properly, citizens, not just political party leaders or stakeholders, will be engaged, will have access to this result, but even ordinary citizens and researchers will have access to this result. So this is something I think we should encourage INEC, and we should not just encourage them, we should engage them and see to ensure that this is done. And civil society organizations like EAGA are ready to provide support if need be to ensure that innovations like this work properly.
Real quickly, I just wanted to ask you, you're on ground, you've been seeing the campaigns, you've been seeing threats of violence. What are these hot spots? Could they be local government areas so that, people could be aware of this, and probably when you engage the stakeholders, you can tell them about this so they can watch and sort of like douse the tension?
Yeah, so there are hotspots in relation to violence. There are hotspots in relation to COVID at the moment. I might not be able to share the statistics critically, but we know that there are places around these local governments in the central. I'm just being careful naming the local government, because sometimes some of this information are good for planning, and as well as they can discourage people from turning out to vote. But again, at the moment, we know that based on the information we're having, some of these things will change when the elections is near. But I would like to mention that the central areas are a bit critical. You agree with me that 2 weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago from now, there was violence, for instance, in some part of Oredo. Yes, that should be Oredo local government. And we've also seen the same local government has been the local government having the highest, the most prevalent cases of COVID. So engagements around those areas are things we should also look at. Then again, we need to look at the local governments where the candidates are coming out from. As someone that has been observing and following elections for a very long time, we know that those areas are key areas that people need to focus on, because anything can happen in those particular areas. And looking at, most especially due to the fact that they are expected to be influential in those particular areas.
Well, Safiya, let's move away from Edo State a little bit. After the 2019 general elections, INEC organized a series of review meetings with political parties, with INEC officials, with ad hoc staff. And part of the process, as we were told, was to distill lessons that have been learned from the 2019 general elections, and to use this to plan not just for the by-elections or off-season elections, but also for the 2023 general elections. Will you say that the political parties and the politicians, with this process that we are reviewing, will you say that they have learned their lessons, yes or no? And then, of course, as we prepare again for 2023, what do you think are those priorities that we should focus upon? Because the 2023 debate is already here, either in terms of zoning or in terms of power shift or in terms of how the electoral process should be managed.
I agree with you that we need to look at the lessons learned from 2019 general elections. But we've also heard that both political parties and INEC saying that they're going to embark on some reforms based on lessons learned from 2019 general elections. But looking at the last elections, that's the Bayelsa and Kogi elections, we've not seen a significant change in terms of what happened in 2019 elections. Some elections observers will even tell you that the 2019 general elections were better than the Kogi and Bayelsa elections. So what we hope to see these changes in Edo and Ondo elections, since we were unable to see that in the two off-cycle elections that were conducted last year. That's what I'll say about that. But again, going back to 2023, that's why YAGA at the moment is engaging with other civil society, are engaging the electoral reform process in the National Assembly. We might not see enough change if the legal framework is not amended. We understand that there are some changes that requires policy reforms, which we've seen from INEC, even with the two innovations that was brought to bear. But again, remember that there's also things are changing, looking at the COVID in place. So there's a lot to do in 2019, even the voting process, 2023, the voting process, political parties campaigns. So we hope to see more reviews on our legal framework by the end of this year, as promised by the National Assembly, and probably in Anambra 2021, we might see more changes. But again, there are policy reforms that have been done so far. We hope to see how effective or these changes, how significant these changes will bring to our electoral process in the Edo and Ondo elections.
Well, conducting an election is beyond the electoral body. There are many stakeholders involved in conducting free or credible elections. From what you have seen so far and the lessons we ought to have learned from the last general elections, where do you see the weakest link when it comes to the stakeholders in the forthcoming elections?
I think a lot has changed with INEC over the years in terms of their engagement or their role in the electoral process. But there's so much gap with political parties and political stakeholders, because if you observe that most of the gaps we've had, be it violence, be it election malpractices, and much more, political parties are always entangled in one or in either of the situations. So I would say that political parties are still the weakest link, and they are also I think they're the stakeholders we need to focus on moving forward.
Right, real quickly, you know, initially you talked about engagement, and engagement is very necessary for elections like this. I mean, engagement of ideas with the people. But in all of this, I've not heard a head-to-head debate between the two candidates in Edo State. Is Yaga going to be one of the stakeholders in making that happen? Is there a date for that? We don't know. Because we'd like to see, you know, the two candidates on the podium exchange ideas and tell the Edo people what will be done for them.
Yeah, Yaga is not just interested in even having the two candidates exchanging their plans for the state, as the case is supposed to be. But we're looking at going further to have like a town hall meeting between candidates and citizens, so that while they tell citizens what they want to do, citizens will also give them feedback on what they want to see, the changes they want to see in the state. And by this, citizens will have the opportunity to set the agenda for elections. We're looking at that probably in the next 2 weeks. Plans are still ongoing, and we are looking at that in Edo specifically to see how we can keep all the leaders or candidates from political parties and citizens together to have this robust conversation on what they have to do for the state, what they have to present for citizens, and what citizens will in turn will want from them as well.
Well, I mean, yes, let's stretch that a little bit. What will be Yaga's message, particularly to the youth of Edo State, the young people there? Because yesterday on this program, we were saying, look, young people in Edo State should not allow themselves to be used as pawns. And then beyond the young people who are very critical in the electoral process, what will be your message also to the political parties and other stakeholders, INEC and the security agencies?
Yeah, first of all, young people, we know that they're part of the marginalized groups, and they're dear to us in Yaga. Our message is that they should engage in meaningful participation in the elections and not participate non-violently in the elections, and they should continue to strive to be part of the both political and electoral process in this country. We will also encourage them to engage the political system beyond the forthcoming elections, be it from the party structure or as well as other structures, political structures in the society. INEC needs to understand that this time around they need to expand their engagement beyond security agencies to also look at, to bring in the NCDC, as I mentioned earlier. Let the INEC's collaboration with other institutions be expanded and be robust. Let security, INEC, and the health agencies come head to head to have a common reason and understanding, and also work together in these elections. We should see a better coordination among security agencies than what we saw in the 2019 general elections, in the pre-election environment of the 2019 general elections. Then that's it basically. For voters is to do the right thing, vote for your conscience, and also engage the process non-violently. That's just it, basically.
Well, thank you very much, Safiya, for joining us this morning on The Morning Show. Thank you very much indeed.